Before we get started in this video, I just want to quickly mention that one of my friends made some number transitions for me. I told him to make some number transition, I gave him some tips, I gave him like what specifically I wanted, and they turned out pretty good. While they didn't render properly, they're definitely better than iMovie title text. So because of this, I took them and I'm going to use them in this video. But he doesn't know I'm going to be doing this. My friend who actually made the animation started a new channel. So I want you guys to subscribe to him if you're into Minecraft. He's going to be doing some Minecraft animations, so if you're into that stuff, I'd say subscribe. If you're not into Minecraft, then don't even bother. Just enjoy the number transitions from this video. And again, if you're into Minecraft, subscribe to him. I'm going to try to get him to 25 or even 50 subscribers before he posts one video. He's going to be very confused why he has double digits amount of subscribers when he hasn't posted one thing. So I'd really appreciate it, but other than that, let's get started on this video. The special attacks are probably the most unique attacks in the 1000-year door. Every single time you collect a crystal star, you get a new special attack, which is a pretty good system to me. With some of them, I'm just going to be using more than others, so I decided to rank all 8 of these special attacks from the 1000-year door. So this was actually a pretty difficult ranking, because some of these attacks I should use, but I don't. And the other ones I don't use for a pretty good reason. Obviously, there's just some of the special attacks that I use all the time. So this is definitely a difficult ranking, but I definitely got it out for you guys, because of course I do. Before we get started on this ranking, I am still trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before summer break hits, so I'd really appreciate if you did subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, or tell a Mario RPG fan that isn't subscribed. And of course, make them subscribe as well. Force them. You better force them. But other than that, let's get started in this video. Showstopper doesn't sound inherently bad. I mean, to be honest, on paper, it sounds extremely OP. I mean, think about it. You can wipe out any enemy on screen with just 2 circles from your gauge. That sounds overpowered. The problem with it is that since it costs 2 circles only, it's gonna have some limitations. Of course it's gonna. Well, first off, the main limitation that sinks into the bottom is that you can't damage enemies over 12 HP. The reason that this is bad is because you get this attack at the end of Chapter 6. When you're going into Chapter 7, most enemies have over 12 HP or exactly 12 HP, which is bad because that means that your attack is basically useless. If you use it, nothing will happen, which is not good. You also can't use this for mini bosses or main bosses, which I guess in that regard it kind of makes sense, but I mean, maybe lower your HP, maybe. No, of course not. Of course it wouldn't work like that. But the other reason it's also so low is that maybe you're going to use this attack when you're going back to earlier places, because obviously those enemies will have less than 12 HP. Fair. I guess you're using it then. The problem though is that you have the most overpowered jump with the spring jump, and you have the most powerful hammer. So because of this, why are you using Showstopper? You do so much damage already. Let's say you don't want to waste FP though. If you're not grinding and you just want to instantly get rid of the enemy, you want to know what you can do? Run away from battle. They'll be stunned in the overworld and you can run away. That's all you need to do. That's all. And this is why Showstopper is useless. You can do so many other things aside from using the Showstopper. This is one of the attacks that I barely ever use when playing the 1000-year door. Most of the time I regret not using special attacks, but this time I didn't regret using this thing. It's so useless to me. I mean, the only reason I can actually see you using this is that if the enemy is really annoying to dodge, but they have low HP. That's the only reason I could see you using this. Other than that, I would just rather use more powerful attacks. The Sweet Treat is probably the one special attack people expected to be low. I mean, not only is it the first special attack you get in the game, it's also the only special attack that genuinely gets replaced. And that's probably why it's so low. I mean, it gets replaced by the Sweet Feast, which heals triple your FP and triple your HP for both your partner and Mario. So because of that, it has to be low. At the very least though, it's extremely cheap gauge-wise. It only costs 1 circle, which is very nice, and it's very easy to use. If you're running low on HP and have very little circles, just use the Sweet Treat. It'll get you by for a little bit. It won't get you by for a long time, unlike the Sweet Feast does, but at the very least, it's cheap, and that's very nice. And it is still the first special attack you get in the game. I mean, you don't even get it from a crystal star, you get it from the magical map that you get at the beginning of the game. So because of this, it's not bad, but it's just bad for the later part of the game, and that's why it's so low. So I don't really dislike Clock Out. I definitely can see a lot of people using this attack pretty well. Well, first off, I'm garbage at this attack. I'm so bad. I used this attack once or twice in my last playthrough, the 1000-Year Door, and I was so bad at it. I was so terrible. It's probably insulting how bad I was to other people that use Clock Out well. That says something. The other thing, though, is that I don't really see the use in Clock Out, in my opinion. I'd rather use something like Power Lift. Let's say we're using this in the early game. I'd rather do something like Power Lift and Earth Tremor, or Power Lift and Art Attack, or in the late game, Power Lift and Supernova, instead of just clocking them out, instead of immobilizing the enemy. I'd rather just buff myself instead of debuffing the enemy. So because of this, I don't really see the use in my arsenal for Clock Out. I don't really see a space for it. So because of that, Clock Out has to be low, where the top 5 are genuinely good attacks, and I used all 5 of them throughout the entire game. So Earth Tremor isn't a bad attack. I mean, it is technically the worst ranked damaging move unless you're counting Showstopper, so that is a bit disappointing, but I mean, Earth Tremor is the first ever damaging special attack you get in the game, so it's not going to be that good compared to stuff like Art Attack and Supernova. Once you get Art Attack though, then yeah, I don't really think that I'm going to be using Earth Tremor over that. I mean, I can definitely see people using Earth Tremor over Art Attack, because Art Attack's controls are a bit weird, but once you get Supernova, there's no reason to use Earth Tremor anymore. But I mean, Supernova is very late in the game. It's after Chapter 7, so I can definitely see people using Earth Tremor for a long time. So because of this, Earth Tremor at the very least does deserve to be at number 5. For me personally, I'd rather use Art Attack over Earth Tremor, which is why it's only at number 5. But since you use it throughout chapters 2 through 4, I think that deserves to be number 5. It's still a good attack. The top 3 on this list is really good. Sadly, Sweet Feast just doesn't get in there. I mean, Sweet Feast is really good. It heals a lot of HP, and it gives you a lot of FP back. It's very good, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't deserve to be in the top 3. It's not really overpowered compared to the top 3. I mean, the top 3 isn't really overpowered, but I constantly use the top 3, where Sweet Feast, I use it, but I don't use it as much. So that is why it's at number 4. And it also is somewhat hard to control. I'm really bad. I just keep hitting the poison mushrooms, which is definitely annoying. But I can't really knock that against Sweet Treat or Sweet Feast as well. So because of this, it's not a bad thing to use at all. It heals a lot and it gives you a lot of FP. But it's still not that good compared to the top 3. Objectively, I think that Art Attack is the hardest attack to control. I obviously struggle with Clock Out more, but Art Attack is definitely not easy. Well, first off, it puts your cursor thing at the middle of the screen. Most of the time, the enemies are going to be a bit more spread out. They aren't going to be right at the middle, which is kind of annoying, but at the end of the day, this attack does a lot of damage. You just have to draw circles around each enemy and it does a lot of damage. The wider the circle, the more damage it does. The only reason why this isn't higher is because it gets replaced by Supernova, obviously. But the other thing is that if the enemies are more spread out, it's just better to use something like an Earth Tremor. So because of this, Art Attack can't get any higher than 3rd. It definitely should have been easier to control, and that probably would have put it at number 2. But at the end of the day, Art Attack is definitely still good through chapters 5 through 7, which is a good thing. It does a lot of damage, and I'm very appreciative of that. Supernova is one of the most powerful attacks you have in your arsenal. It does 15 damage to every single enemy on screen. That is ridiculous. It also is an easy attack to pull off. All you have to do is spam the big fat A button. And it's a big A button, so it's pretty easy to spam. So that means that, I mean, obviously it deserves to be number 1, right? Really powerful, every single enemy, really easy to pull off. Well, no, there are some drawbacks to it. Well, first off, you get this all the way at the end of Chapter 7. That's pretty late in the game, so you don't have much time to actually use this special attack. It's the last special attack you get in the game, so obviously it's going to be kind of overpowered. That's kind of a given. The other thing, though, is that it's pretty expensive. 6 circles is definitely a bigger amount. It's probably the most expensive special attack in the game. It makes sense, but I mean, the best special attack in the game isn't really that expensive. So because of that, Supernova only deserves to be number 2. It's a really good attack, don't get me wrong, but it's not the best special attack in the game. Power Lift is the best special attack in the game to me. I mean, it buffs both your power and your defense. Both stats you can only buff by using badge points, and you need a decent amount of badge points to actually buff each of them. So because of this, Power Lift is extremely useful during boss battles. I mean, you buff it so much that if you pair it with something like a Power Bounce or a Supernova, it's gonna be ridiculously overpowered. Also, the defense buff is extremely nice, which means that you're going to be taking less damage overall instead of you having to use something like a Sweet Treat or a Sweet Feast to heal back up. I mean, think about it. You can pair Power Lift with anything you want to. If you want to heal up but still get more defense, use Sweet Feast or big items. If you want to do a lot of damage, use Power Lift, Supernova, and you could use Power Lift in Power Bounce. So because of this, Power Lift being able to pair with almost every single attack in this game, and being able to buff yourself so high, it has to be number 1. It's even pretty easy to pull off. It's not as easy as something like Supernova, but it's still pretty easy, which is very nice. Thank you guys for watching this video. My next video will be on, I'm not sure. I mean, the 1,000-year door video was kind of random. So I'll see you guys in the next video. I have no idea what it will be. So yeah, see you guys in the next one. Of course, I'm still trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, so if you lasted this long, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.